This episode is in partnership with Authority Magazine. Authority Magazine, a Medium publication, is devoted to sharing in-depth and interesting interviews featuring people who are authorities in business, pop culture, wellness, social impact, and tech. It's pretty common knowledge that a dog can be a best friend. But as we're about to find out, they can also be a healer.
John Miller and the Guide Dog Foundation, along with America's Vet Dogs, is providing service animals to many veterans having difficulty coping.
And the organization is finding supporters in some of the most interesting places. John Miller of America's Vet Dogs, welcome to Believe in People.
Well, thank you so much for having us. We're excited to be here today with you guys.
Well, the first question is, we've mentioned the fact that you are getting support in all kinds of interesting places, and we'll get to that in a second. But I guess the first question really should be, what does a dog do for a veteran who has suffered some form of trauma?
You know, it's a great question, and you haven't been at the organization now a little under 6 years. It's a little different for everybody, but what every dog has in common, at least that I've been able to witness, is it's a transformational experience, right? We've had countless veterans talk about going out in public for the first time since they've had their dog, being able to be comfortable at a family gathering. Wives talking about getting their husbands back, husbands talking about getting their wives back, children getting their mother or father back. And, we have all kinds of different dogs, but it's a transformational experience, right? Some of the dogs are, work to mitigate the symptoms of PTSD. Some work, to help folks who have significant injuries, physical injuries from the war. Many of our clients have faced amputations or multiple amputations, so mobility assistance is certainly part of what they do. The dogs are trained to retrieve items. One of the more popular commands is one of the more simple ones. It's called rest, where our dog would come up upon the rest command and put their head on your lap, and it's very cathartic. It helps you clear your mind and your focus, your energy on the dog. That was we had the opportunity to work with former President Bush, and that was one of the former president's favorite commands. With Sully was the rest command. But something that maybe folks don't realize as much, another task is nightmare interruption, and the dogs are trained that if a soldier or veteran is, having, night tremors or night terrors, they're trained to either do one of two things, either bump them on, the leg and, wake them up, or if that doesn't work, pull the covers off and, try to get them out of, their episodes. So there's no lack of functions, but the common denominator is, their life-changing, experience.
Wow. And then my question is then, what's the length of time to train a dog?
Yeah, so our cycle, it's just a little less than 2 years. So we breed our dogs here on Long Island, where I'm talking to you from today. The dogs are with us for about 8 weeks. You make sure that they're healthy, well-adjusted, get the shots they need. And then one of two things happens from there. They either go into a private home to be raised for about a year, or they go into one of our about 15 prison programs across the country, to be raised, where we have partnerships with 14 or 15 prisons at this point to help train the dogs. So we have trainers go in to the facilities and work with the incarcerated individuals to teach them some training skills. And it's a great program. It's a win-win, for both sides. It's a privilege, at the facility to get one of the dogs, and we have just tremendous stories, and many of the folks in the prisons working with our dogs also happen to be veterans. So they're preparing, a dog for, another veteran, which is just such a rewarding experience. So that goes until about 14 to 16 months of the dog's age. Then all the dogs come back here to Long Island to be formally trained and matched. So that's about a 3-month process. So we have, I'll give you, two different types, of dogs, right? So probably our most famous dog, and I referred to him earlier, was Sully, President Bush's dog. So Sully was great. He has, and he's at Walter Reed today and still making a difference. But at the time, the president was in his mid 90s, and we needed to provide a dog that was what we call kind of chill, like an old soul, right? That wasn't going to be running around and going crazy. And Sully had the right temperament, and we're able to create a good match there, as opposed to a gentleman I was just with on Capitol Hill last week, who is a almost 300-pound professional bodybuilder who also happens to be an amputee, but lives a very, very active lifestyle. So very different type of dog goes to that gentleman, right? And so that's the matching process. So we figure all that out. And then the dogs get custom trained to each individual set of skills that they need. And then ultimately, after they're ready to go, we invite the veterans, to come to our campus here. We have a full dormitory facility on Long Island. They spend 2 weeks with us. We introduce them to the dogs. We teach them how to, work with the dogs, how to care for the dogs. And then once that's done, we send them out into the world, and it's a free lifetime of aftercare, right? So that whole process is just a little under 2 years, and then. We don't charge, so everything we do is free, and it's just a great experience. But it's about a 2-year process.
Wow.
I'm assuming you were talking about President George H.W. Bush. I think you mentioned that his age there. So he had the dog. Do you find, because so many of the I don't know how the recipients, I guess you would say, have difficulty returning to society, what sort of changes do you notice in them? Is there trepidation in the beginning when the dog comes? Are they worried about having the dog? And then what sort of transformations take place in their life?
So, for instance, we have everybody's here for about a day and a half before they get their dog, and you can see, in that short period of time, the anxiety, build up of the unknown and what's going to happen. Right. But, generally when they're introduced to their dogs for the first time, I hate to be cliche, but it is love at first sight. The dogs are excited to meet them. The veterans are excited, to meet the dogs. And then, we start, the bonding process. Right. So, I'll give you an interesting story. One of the first classes that we had when I came on board, I spent a good amount of time, learning the curriculum and, meeting, the students and the instructors, because I was, brand new at the time. And, really, it was not lost on me, the impact on the dog. So we had, I won't use any names or, any, confidentialities, but it's really a remarkable story. We had one gentleman who, during, the mealtime would, kind of be withdrawn, sit in the back, blacked out shades, hat down low. Would ask you a question, if you asked, and the answers were pretty much yes, sir, no, sir, but kind of the vibe was kind of leave me alone, sir, right? And and it's understandable, right? And a lot of our folks here have been through some really tough stuff, and you saw him open up over the course of the 2 weeks, but not fully, right? And then so. You saw a little bit of a transformation right here instantly. And then I had the opportunity, to meet the same gentleman about a year and a half later, maybe almost 2 years later, actually. And totally, I did not recognize him. Totally different person. No more hat, no more shades. Very affable, had jokes for me, when I met him. And I had found out, that, when he was up by us going through class, he was on a significant number of medications, double digits, right? And when I met him about 2 years later, he was down to just a handful. And while I'm sure it's not all due to the dog, he certainly credits, the dog in, being, the catalyst for his recovery. And, going to, the point I made earlier, having met his wife at that time too, she was, very quick, to let us all know what an impact, that was actually the example I was using, about, a family getting their father back, a wife, getting her husband back. And, we hear those types of stories here, almost daily, which is what really makes, the work rewarding.
Wow. I was going to say the dog probably matched them. John, why this career for you? Where did this take? How did you get to this place?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I started my career early on. First 11 years of my career was in local government. Here on Long Island, and ultimately, found the nonprofit path, not necessarily intentionally, but I got recruited at a local government to run a college up in Westchester as their chief operating officer. And it was great college, and great time there and great experience. But I lived on Long Island, and for the listeners who don't know the geography, it's about 2 hours each way, and I really didn't want to leave Long Island, and went out into the market, and ultimately became the chief of staff of the food bank for New York City, which was the largest at the time, probably still is, and had the opportunity to do a lot of good work there. It was during the Great Recession, so it was an impactful time for the food bank when I was there, and that really started my non-profit career. And one of the things I did with the food bank was to provide the Red Cross in New York City with meals and food if there were local disasters. If an apartment building had significant fire, or if there's an explosion, or whatever the disaster may be, we worked in concert with the Red Cross. And then ultimately, the Red Cross had an opening here on Long Island to be their CEO, and reached out to me about possibly coming on board. And timing is everything. So I had the food bank at the Great Recession. I had the Red Cross here on Long Island during Superstorm Sandy, right? So, I guess you could say I'm somewhat battle tested at this point. But an interesting point in all this is the search firm that the food bank had used for a number of positions wound up getting the search for America's Vet Dogs. And I believe they reached out to me fairly late in the process. I don't know all the details of the search, but I'm glad they called, right? And both of my grandfathers were World War II vets, right? I knew them, and they identified at that point in their life, with and from their injuries from the war. And just imagining how if they knew, or if these services were even available, is at their time, what a difference they could have had in their quality of life. And I had the opportunity to meet the board here. I've met some of the graduates through the interview process, and while I was very happy with what I was doing at the time, this made a lot of sense.
Wow.
We mentioned a little bit earlier about the number of organizations that have gotten involved. The first time I met you was with the Washington Capitals of the NHL, and the Caps had been adopted by a dog, so to speak. Yeah. Players love the dog. Not only that, but the children of the families of the players also love the dog. Now, this what is important about doing that, and the Caps aren't the only team that have done that. Baseball teams as well, right?
Yeah, so we're in every league except the NBA at this point, but I expect that'll be happening relatively soon. The program, the sports program for us, really started with the New York Islanders here. Okay, and, they were our first team to really have a Puppy with a Purpose program. And now, like I said, we're in every league, except the NBA at this point. But the Capitals really, each time we've done one of these, we do it a little bit better each time, right? And each time there's another team involved, there's a little bit of friendly competition, particularly if they're in the same sport. So, the Islanders and the Capitals are two of our greatest, partners, and they try to outdo each other with the media and the social media. But really, what happens is we look at this, and not to oversimplify it, but all of these partnerships, we look for three things, and America's Vet Dogs, right? AVD. So we also, transcript that to mean apply, volunteer, and donate, right? So we go into these partnerships looking to bolster those three items, right? We need applicants. We want people to know about our services. We need volunteers. We can't do our work without our volunteers. We have, about 140 members of the staff on the payroll, but over 1,600 volunteers, across the country. And D, donate. It's the dirty word, so to speak. But everything we do, as I said earlier, it's free. We don't charge, not even 1 cent. No travel charges. Everything we do is provided for the veterans. So we have to raise just about 20 million a year, to break even. So the sports partnerships help us do those three things. But in addition to that, they also help us, socialize the dogs, right? So for a dog like Sully or a dog like, Galaxy, who is, the bodybuilder's dog that I was talking about earlier, our graduates lead active lives. So the more the dogs can be exposed to crowds, different noises, different smells, different sounds, gives them a better opportunity on the back end to be well-trained service dogs because they've been exposed to so much, during their upbringing. And not only the sports teams, but we have a corporate program too, where we have over a dozen corporations that have a puppy with a purpose, and it just does wonders for the morale and having a dog in the office. It's really a special thing, and it's great for employee engagement. So it works for the sports teams, for the fans and fan engagement, and the players, as you mentioned, Kevin, and the owners of the team were all involved. We had a funny story. I'll give you a funny story. So Mr. Blank, Arthur Blank, down in Atlanta United, also owns the Falcons, but we have a couple of puppies with the professional soccer team down there. He sent his private jet, to come pick up the dog. Right, sent the private jet, came to get the dog. So we did a big launch. I went down on Delta. Right, so the dog got the VIP treatment. So everybody from the ownership on down, and the baseball team you're referring to. We actually had the first dog in the MLB, which is with the Mets. And the amazing Mets Foundation and the Cohens, who are just really supportive of the program and veterans causes. And we had the dog down at spring training, and now we're actually on our second dog with them. And for everybody from the owners, the players, the fans, you go around with one of these dogs, and Kevin, you saw it at Capital One Arena. They get a little paparazzi, following them, and they're stars in their own right, at these games. And it's great for awareness of our mission, and it's great for fan engagement for the teams.
Wow, paparazzi, I love that. It's hilarious. John, I want to ask you, so how long does it take from a veteran to reach out to you to the time then, okay, and it takes 2 years to train. What's the process for them to receive their dog? Sure.
So, it's a fairly intricate process, but not complex, if that makes sense. So you just go to our website, vetdogs.org. You just click on the Apply Now button. You fill out a preliminary application. We do a preliminary screening on what it is you're looking for, what it is you're looking the dog to help assist with, right? And assuming those things align, we do a more thorough interview, and it goes to a part 2 of the process where we do work with your medical team, right? The veterans medical team at the VA, or if they have their own private doctors. To make sure, that the doctors are in alignment, that, a dog would be a good, therapeutic, cause for the veteran. And, then from there, it's some paperwork, some medical paperwork. We'd have to do home inspections, to make sure the dog will be going to a safe environment, and that, the family could actually support, a dog safely. And, go from there. That process, it was, right after Sully, about a 3-year wait. We're down now to about just a little over a year.
You just brought up an interesting point, and that is that the medical staff, you obviously work closely with Walter Reed and other VA facilities across the United States. What does the medical community say about the effect the love of a dog has for a veteran who is suffering?
Yeah, so like you said, Ken, we have the dogs in about 25 different military installations, whether they're VAs or bases, and the results of the program are unanimously overwhelmingly positive, right? All of the feedback we get where we have the dogs, they generally want more dogs, right? to help with the workload. So the dogs are a very popular tool. But it's a little different, a dog in a facility than a dog in a home, right? So we got to make sure the dog's in the home, the home is a safe environment. Generally, the facilities, have protocols and structures, in place. So it's a little easier of an ask, but it's interesting. It's also a different type of dog too that goes, to the facilities, right? Because the dog's going to be dealing with thousands of people potentially, right? And we have 4 dogs currently at Walter Reed. Sully, is one of them. Sully's the most popular. Everybody wants to meet, the former president's, dog. But the other dogs are no less popular. And we find, that the dogs in those facilities, are kind of our best referral sources. Many of the veterans who actually apply have encountered one of our dogs, at one of the facilities, out there that we work with.
Wow. And so I'm just thinking about, wow, all of the work that the dog needs to do for training. How do they adapt? Do you see them again in order for them to get counseling in a way? I mean, just share with us that process.
So, the dogs, get plenty of downtime to be dogs, right? It's baked into their, training. They're in their DNA, right? So, the basic rule of thumb is, when the dog has a vest on, it's working, and the dogs are trained that when the vest is off, have at it, right? Run around the yard, run around the house, do what you got to do. It's a very, clear thing. And you can see it in the dog's response when they put the vest on, they know it's time, to get serious. And, but there's plenty of times for them to be a dog. And, we certify everybody yearly. So, once the team, we call them the team, the veteran and the dog leave the facility and are paired up here, we have a check-in with them annually to make sure that things are going the right way, that the dog's training is standing up. Also, on the veteran side, to make sure they don't have any new issues or need some retraining themselves on how to work with the dogs. So the dogs are very well cared for, and ultimately they get plenty of time to have a little fun too.
So it's kind of like updating my computer once a month, except you're updating your schnauzer or what have you. John, every week we ask our guest on the show why they believe in people. You work with people, you work with animals, and so we're going to change it a little bit for you this week. We're not going to ask you, John Miller of America's Vet Dogs, why you believe in people. Why do you believe in puppies?
Yeah, a lot of reasons, right? Number one, they're transformational, right? And the biggest thing I could say that I've experienced here, watching what we do and their impact, is the unconditional love that they provide, right? And they're not judging you, based on your disability. They're not judging you based on your station in life. They're happy to be with you, and they're happy to be helping you. And it's inspiring. And it's somewhat cliche, but I wouldn't have believed it unless I saw it myself. And I've had the opportunity to see it now hundreds and hundreds of times over the last few years, and it's no less inspiring. Every day, we have a success story here, and it's really something else.
Well, this is inspiring.
Thank you so much for sharing it with us.
My pleasure. Yeah, thank you guys. Happy to do it, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Okay, woof to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Well, Kevin, dogs are I guess humans' best friend. But one thing I'm sort of wishing is, wouldn't it be nice if we were a little bit more like dogs and just had that nice disposition? I just think that would be quite pleasant in this world, that we need that.
Well, I think we do. And the servicemen and women that we're talking about, who I have spent a lot of time with over my years in my profession in TV, a lot of people come home missing a lot of things. Some of them are very obvious. If it happens to be a limb, sometimes the damage is internal. And I think John is absolutely right that a dog that loves you no matter what has a way of bringing yourself back, bringing yourself out. It's very inspiring. If you've been inspired by this, then tune in again next week and subscribe to Believe in People, because you'll probably be inspired again. Thanks for joining.
Thanks.